Hello, hello. Welcome to Regulatory Rewind. This is episode number 19 since we've gone live this year. And we're really happy to take you through the global developments in our industry over the last week or so. I am Chrissy Hill, and I'm the Chief Legal Officer of Parity. And I am very Happy to be helping deliver today's Regulatory Rewind. It is our last Regulatory Rewind for a little while because we're about to take summer break. So we'll be back the 3rd of September. And just a reminder that in the meantime, while we're talking to you about what's happened in the last week, nothing that we say is legal advice or investment advice. We're your lawyers, but we're not your lawyers. And we are just trying to help educate everyone. And also, I would like to say a personal thank you to the whole Parity team for bringing Regulatory Rewind to life. So, without any further delay, I'm going to hand over to Glenn, and he is going to take us through what has happened in the EU over the last week. Glenn.
Thank you, Chrissy. So to kick things off in Europe, Coinbase has secured a MiCA license from Luxembourg, making it the first US exchange approved under the EU's new crypto rules. Robinhood and Bybit also obtained MiCA licenses, which permit them to operate across all member states. Over in Switzerland, we see that the Swiss Federal Council just approved a draft decree for automatic financial information exchange and new crypto reporting rules. So starting January 1st, 2026, Switzerland will adopt the OECD's Crypto Asset Reporting Framework, or CARF, officially bringing crypto assets into its tax reporting system. CARF will require crypto platforms to report every user transaction, which understandably has raised some concerns over user privacy. We do note that similar measures have been taken up by the UK. And so this is consistent with a larger theme where we see that different jurisdictions will be implementing these guidelines by the OECD to ensure that they remain compliant going forward. Next, the Czech government has survived a no confidence vote by 7 votes over a $45 million Bitcoin donation from a convicted criminal. The donation came from a former drug trafficker who gave over 1,500 Bitcoin to the Ministry of Justice, which led to the justice minister resigning. A new justice minister has promised a full investigation into the matter and has promised to give details into how the donation was accepted. Next up, we see that EU regulators are divided on whether to give ESMA more power over crypto oversight. With MiCA now being in full effect, member states are still grappling with enforcement issues, and some member states are reporting to be operating and implementing MiCA at different speeds. ESMA Chair Verena Ross says that there is no unified support across member states for expanding the regulator's direct authority. So we see that France is in support of more oversight at the EU level, while others like Luxembourg prefer keeping oversight at the national level. Ross says the idea of turning ESMA into a European SEC is flattering but unrealistic, stressing that any new powers should be narrow and debated openly. Next, according to Paybis, crypto trading volume from EU customers jumped 70% in Q1, following the rollout of EU's MiCA, while activity in the US declined over the same period. Paybis attributes the shift to MiCA's licensing clarity, which allows firms to operate across all EU member states under a single approval. Although the US are starting to improve their regulation with the proposed Genius Act and market structure bills, users still face unclear rules with state-by-state licensing, unresolved SEC cases, and limited clarity on staking. So although it's still early in the innings of the US's regime versus the EU's MiCA regime, it seems that it's reflecting in some of the numbers and data we see with trading activity. Next up, over in Ukraine, a new draft bill in the Ukraine's parliament will permit the National Bank of Ukraine to hold crypto assets like Bitcoin as part of the country's national reserves, alongside gold and foreign currencies. The measures do not require the central bank to buy crypto, but gives them full discretion as to how they will allocate it if they wish to allocate it. The bill was developed with input from Binance and local legal experts, reflecting a global trend where we see that nation states are adopting crypto assets and keeping them in their reserves. And so that was the final story for the EU. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jamil to discuss the UK.
Thanks, Glenn. In the UK, the Law Commission has published a consultation paper on June the 5th, proposing landmark reforms as to how private international law applies to digital assets like crypto tokens and electronic trade documents. So in terms of jurisdiction, traditional rules rely on the physical location, but with digital assets, this is spread globally via distributed ledger technologies, DLT, making the location unclear. The paper from the Law Commission suggests a new information order so fraud victims can access asset or user data across borders without hurdles. So the paper also proposes that instead of forcing a single governing law, the Commission here proposes a supranational decision framework, creating bespoke rules for decentralized networks when no single country's laws are suitable. According to the paper, courts should weigh multiple factors such as user expectations, protocol terms, and network integrity to deliver fair outcomes in decentralized environments. There is an aspect of modernizing old legislation with updates to Section 72 of the Bills of Exchange Act 1882, which would make it legally coherent for both paper and electronic documents. And in terms of this proposal, it's clear that current legal frameworks based on territorial principles aren't fit for crypto, according to the Law Commission, and the reforms here aim to reduce legal uncertainty in cross-border disputes involving digital assets. In terms of what's next here, the consultation is open until September the 8th, 2025, inviting feedback from legal professionals, technology firms, financial institutions, and other stakeholders. And with that, over to Eva, who has some news for us in terms of a report from the House of Lords in the UK. Eva?
That's right. Thank you, Jamil. So staying in the UK, just to reflect a little bit on what Jamil was saying. So that was the Law Commission. So as we've always said, lawyers and legal structures are often a little bit slow to respond to technical innovations. And the Law Commission is there to help change the law and consider how the law should be changed in the face of technology. So in the UK, there has been what has been described at some of the conferences I've been to, a tsunami of legislation and legislative efforts this year. We've reported on them throughout. It's mostly been around the consultation and the way that the UK is proposing to change the legislation by amending existing legislation, which means it can happen very fast. And I think some of the opinions that I've heard is that it's kind of a done deal anyway, but they're still doing consultations because all it requires is to go through the parliamentary process and it can be signed off. And there's been the FCA following up on the original Treasury proposals on the changes to the legislation. So there's been a lot of stuff in the UK to think about and that we're expecting to become law this year. And this piece here, the House of Lords report, is not legislation as such. It is more to do with the industry and culture shift. So it's the House of Lords Financial Services Regulation Committee, and their report is about how the FCA and the PRA, which is the Financial Conduct Authority, and the Prudential Regulatory Authority, which is the two authorities that look at securities, financial services, and banking specifically. And they, hey, Chrissy. Can't hear you.
Continue your thought, Eva. I was just coming in to ask you a question.
Oh, sure. I'll continue the thought, which is, so there's some recommendations around, there's observations, and there's some recommendations. The observations are around structural and cultural changes that are holding the sector back. And this is around having a deeply entrenched risk-averse culture in the UK, a lot of overlapping and excessive regulatory burdens, and things being inefficient and slow. Now, this is it's trying to flag to the attention of everyone that there is a perceived regulatory penalty for trying to do business in the UK, and that undermines the global financial competitiveness of the UK. So it is therefore interesting that the House of Lords has a committee that has responded to this, and we also have a lot of legislation happening at the same time. And industry response, I think, can be summarized by the FT article, which basically says UK regulators should be more Singapore, be more pro-growth, have like concierge style services to and help industry participants enter the market and reduce the red tape and have regulation that balances efficiency with guardrails. So it's not a race to the bottom, which is sort of
And Eva, just a quick question. I mean, this is where I think we're based in the UK, and us offering our views on, do we think that the climate is changing? Do we feel it? I certainly feel it, but wanted to hear kind of some of your personal reflections on that.
Well, definitely more so this year than last year. Had you asked me this time last year, I would have said, tentative, speculative, let's see what happens. There was a lot of things happening politically that we weren't sure about. But now, I mean, the UK is I feel like, a much stronger position. In fact, it was this time last year, I was in the States speaking to US L1 regulatory and policy people, and it was very much like, oh, the UK, you let yourself down, you could have done something by now. And the steer seemed to be heading back towards the US, particularly at the beginning of this year. But the UK has kind of almost caught up a bit with this tsunami of legislation, and the concept of it becoming a little bit like a safe harbor between the EU and between the US, and trying to fill that gap while the US is still rolling out its legislation, which is not necessarily as fast as some people anticipated at the beginning of the year.
And we'll get to the US. I'll give an update at the on the US at the bottom of our 30 minutes. But I think it's interesting to see UK, US kind of, inching forward. And it's something that I think everyone should be mindful of. And that's all I wanted to interject on, Eva. So back to you in terms of what else we need to go through for the UK or elsewhere.
I think we're pretty much done on the UK for now. I think there's going to be news over the summer, which we will then present in our first post-summer break Reg Rewind on what's happened over the summer. I think there will be a lot of changes over the next couple of months from the UK perspective. And since we've had a break last week, there's been quite a lot of news in Asia. So I am going to jump on a plane and travel to Asia, landing in Thailand to talk about Thailand and a couple of other countries where there's been some regulatory changes, enforcement changes, change of direction, which is always indicative of the efforts that each country is trying to inject into their industry for crypto. So the first one is Thailand. So I like to think now of the different countries that we look at in terms of global crypto adoption index ranking by Chainalysis, because that certainly does steer some of the direction for some of these countries. And so in Thailand is ranked 17 in the last report, and their Thai SEC has proposed new rules to combat crypto insider trading. I think in the past, there has been a big issue with insider trading in Thailand to do with crypto. So as part of the broader regulatory efforts, which we've reported on previously, for example, where they've brought in a broader regulatory framework and they're encouraging tourists to spend crypto on credit cards in certain parts of Thailand, and they have changed some of the tax rules to make crypto sales easier through certain license providers. This is another part of the bigger jigsaw puzzle to help change the perception of the crypto industry in Thailand, and also provide those safeguards that you'd expect with more traditional industries. So this is insider trading. You'd expect that for banking and financial institutions. So this is a a crypto version of it. And moving on to Japan, Japan has had an even bigger news headline, which is a reclassification of crypto, which is a big regulatory overhaul. It means cryptocurrencies, their version of the SEC, their Financial Services Agency, has proposed classifying cryptocurrencies as financial products, which aligns them with traditional securities. So that is a big change. And that means that it is possible for them to consider ETFs, which is something that's big on the news over on stateside, particularly over the next coming months, where we're expecting quite a few decisions. And this is part of something they call Japan's broader new capitalism strategy, which seeks to position the country as an investment-led economy and a hub for digital asset innovation. Japan is number 23 on the Chainalysis Crypto Adoption Index. And then one of my favorite countries to report on, Pakistan, because Pakistan is third in the index, and third is extremely high, which kind of helps you understand why it's such a important part of a country's national strategy. So this one is that Michael Saylor, many of you will see him on many headlines. He has also now joined the legions of advisory support to Pakistan, and this is following in the footsteps of CZ Peng from Binance. And it is interesting because, as you know, we've reported a lot on what the Pakistan government has been doing. They created the Crypto Council, they hired lots of people, they've been talking about their Bitcoin reserve and their energy allocation, and they've been in the States, going to the White House and having conversations about how to do Bitcoin, really, and how to do digital assets. Over to Vietnam. This is also a pretty major thing. So Vietnam is now it's now legal to have crypto in Vietnam, which is prior to, I think it was June 14th. It was still not exactly legal. It's now been split into two types of assets: virtual assets and crypto assets. And they're trying to align anti-money laundering and all manner of other related international standards to their legislative framework. So there's tax breaks, there's R&D funding, there's immigration and education aspects to this new push. So again, Vietnam is quite high up. They're 7th in the crypto adoption index, and it also makes sense that they're trying to position themselves as a regional hub. So Asia is racing ahead. And in China, there is also some news, which is about their CBDC. The Bank of China is expanding the digital yuan, and it still shows that China is in the game, even though it has taken a very critical approach to digital assets so far. Last one on Asia. I promise it's a short one. It's Singapore, which I believe Gustav reported on last time. And that is the fact that the new directive, which is a pretty significant one around firms which operate from Singapore but offer services overseas, they need licenses, and that law comes into effect on Monday. So it'll be interesting to see whether those without licenses really will cease to provide those services going forward. Now, I'm going to stop. There's a lot of Asia news there, and I'll hand it over to Jamil to talk about a country that is sort of in Asia.
Thanks, Eva. That's right. We weren't sure whether to say Asia or Europe, but we moved to Turkey, which is implementing stricter regulations on crypto transactions to combat money laundering and financial crime. Under the new rules, crypto platforms must collect detailed information on the origin and purpose of each transfer, including a mandatory 20-character transaction description. Additionally, withdrawal delays of 48 to 72 hours will be enforced if the so-called travel rule, which requires verifying sender and recipient details, is not applied. Stablecoin transfers will be capped at $3,000 per day and $50,000 per month, with exceptions for verified liquidity provision and arbitrage activities. Platforms failing to comply may face administrative, legal, and financial sanctions, including potential license revocation. And these measures align Turkey's crypto regulations with international standards, such as the EU's MiCA framework, and aim to enhance transparency in the Turkish crypto sector. And moving on from Turkey, we move on to the Middle East and Africa, where Yellow Card, a licensed stablecoin payments platform, which currently operates in more than 20 African countries, has partnered with Visa to accelerate stablecoin use in cross-border payments across emerging economies. The collaboration here aims to streamline treasury operations, enhance liquidity management, reduce transaction costs, and enable faster, more effective money movement. Visa is actually extending its stablecoin settlement capabilities across Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, utilizing USDC blockchain solutions to support 24/7 USD cross-border transactions. Visa has already processed over $225 million in stablecoin settlements. The move positions Yellow Card as a critical financial gateway in emerging markets and reinforces Visa's strategy to modernize payments infrastructure with blockchain technology. And over from Africa to Central and South America, we go to Brazil, where on June 17th, Brazil's National Secretariat of Public Security launched a 36-month nationwide plan to monitor cryptocurrency transactions in 15 of the country's 27 capitals, with the aim to combat illicit finance like money laundering, fraud, and drug trafficking. The program will deploy advanced blockchain surveillance tools capable of tracking wallet activity, IP addresses, and geographic data across major networks: Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Dogecoin, and others. All local crypto businesses must register with authorities and continually upgrade their systems to stay compliant over the next 3 years. The initiative may be coupled with a proposed 17.5% tax on crypto trades, signaling Brazil's push to balance innovation with oversight and bolster trust in digital finance. But this move here has hit retail investors hard. Casual traders now could face taxation on even small crypto gains, making everyday transactions like buying coffee with crypto a taxable event. Industry voices in Brazil warn this could destroy Brazil's national crypto market. There's also been backlash congressionally. Lawmakers argue that the decree exceeds executive power and could be legally void. Deputy Gustavo Gaia introduced a legislative decree to nullify it, calling the process legally dubious, and warns it can harm transparency. The provisional measure needs congressional approval within 120 days. If rejected or amended, the tax rules might be rolled back or altered. Otherwise, they should take effect in early 2026. And moving on from Brazil, I'd like to hand it over to Chrissy on the US.
Thanks, Jamil and Eva, and also Glenn. So we're going to the US to talk about some of the developments in the last week. Obviously, there's been a lot happening geopolitically, but we are definitely focusing on stable coins, Bitcoin, and generally the vibe as it relates to crypto. As Eva said, we're seeing a change in the UK in terms of the stance of individuals and also public bodies. And equally in the US, you are seeing a change in stance being backed up by actions. So just last week, the US Senate, those lawmakers passed the Genius Act, which is a framework that establishes a way to govern issuing and trading of stable coins. It had bipartisan support, and we've seen that throughout the year with various press conferences, particularly involving Senator Tim Scott, who is a senator from my home state of South Carolina. On both sides of the aisle, there is support for this bill in the Senate. It has to pass the House, though. As everyone knows, there is a bicameral approach in the U.S., so the House is up next, but it looks like it is on track to be signed into law this summer. So we shall see. I think at the same time, it's interesting to note that the House is weighing up the Clarity bill as well, which is a crypto market structure bill. And that hopefully will be bringing on more clarity and greater definition in the coming months. At the same time, you have these acts going through Congress in the US. You also have just yesterday or earlier this week, the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, saying that these bills are great and he's happy to see them, and that financial institutions in the states shouldn't consider crypto as a reputational risk anymore. And indeed, so much so that the federal housing regulator came out on X again just this week saying that they're going to be considering crypto for mortgages in the states. So they're looking into it. Things are changing. And that's at the federal level. At the state level, we also see some movement. Texas has become the first state to use public funds to establish a standalone Bitcoin reserve. It will accept airdrops and donations, and it's seen to be setting a standard for diversified treasury management for the rest of the states. And I think, again, as Eva said, when we were talking about the UK, if it were this time last year, we would have been having a very different conversation about some of these issues. And the change is very fast and very apparent. And you're even seeing it in statements being made by those who in the past have been stalwart opponents of the industry, including Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan, who said just last month that actually he thought Bitcoin was okay and JPM customers can be engaged with Bitcoin. So tone matters. These acts matter. And I think we'll see the geopolitical positioning within crypto, within blockchain, and emerging tech generally being played out over the next 12 to 18 months in even sharper relief. So that's it from the US in terms of how it impacts what we think about day to day. And as always, we like to end on a lighthearted note. And before we do that, actually, I'm going to pass to Eva to talk a little bit about Dows, and then Jamil on our lighthearted note. So Eva, over to you about Dows, and then to Jamil for a funny news story.
Yeah, just to show that we're not just thinking about regulation, but thinking about other legal issues in the Web3 space. So Dows, there was an interesting story about 1inch Foundation, which as with all these foundations, you have to look up where they are actually based. So they're based in BVI, but they're actually just global, really, aren't they? So this was interesting because there was a hack. And then a proposal was put forward and has since then been passed, narrowly, I believe, to reimburse users affected by a hack with some compensation. And why it's interesting to me is because in order for victims to claim compensation, they have to provide some KYC. And I think I don't know a lot about 1inch, but what I have understood is that they haven't specified what kind of KYC would be required, but it doesn't KYC. The platform itself doesn't require a full KYC process. So people who prefer not to use centralized exchanges that have KYC requirements would go to 1inch. So that might be one of their selling points. And it now means that if you suffer a hack by what you wish to reclaim the compensation, you have to provide that information. So it's just an interesting show of the tension between AML, KYC, centralized versus decentralized, and privacy, and DAO regulation, and how to DAO, and a little bit of Go Gustav. He was he chaired a DAO workshop this week in Zurich. So we are all busy thinking about all things, not just regulation, but also DAOs and developer liability and all sorts of things around the Web3 space. And we'll continue to do that, and we'll continue sharing that with you after the summer break. And now over to Jamil for the interesting story.
Thanks, Eva. So with this one, we have Pavel Durov, who we've reported on before, the co-founder of Telegram. He's announced he will divide his estimated $17.1 billion fortune equally among all 106 of his children. None of the children will gain access to the funds until June 19th, 2055, which is 30 years from now, with the aim to ensure they mature independently first. Durov stated that all of his children, biological and donor, will have equal rights to the inheritance to prevent conflict and promote fairness. He cited the risks associated with his advocacy for internet freedom and legal pressures, including charges in France and criticism over Telegram's content policies, as reasons to formalize his estate plan. By postponing access to the inheritance, Durov aims to let his children live like normal people, fostering self-reliance rather than early dependence on wealth. And related to this story is that Binance has launched an emergency contact and inheritance functionality, allowing users to designate heirs who can claim their crypto assets in the event of their death. Founder CZ emphasized the importance of crypto platforms implementing will functions to ensure users' digital assets are distributed according to their wishes after their passing. The crypto community has largely welcomed the initiative, with some users suggesting enhancements like transferring entire accounts to heirs, including tokenized wealth and social presence. Experts highlight the necessity for detailed instructions in wills regarding digital assets, as many families have faced challenges accessing crypto holdings after a loved one's death. So a couple of interesting stories there, which do have a link. It's interesting to see what it looks like for Binance, a centralized exchange. What might it look like for DEXs, for example, or other methods of storing digital assets? That remains to be seen. And that's the funny story, and that's it for Reg Rewind. Back to Chrissy.
Well, thank you, everyone. This is actually my last regulatory rewind, and I am been bidding a fond farewell. We started in February 2023. I think we're actually at a total of over 85 regulatory rewinds, generally 19 since we've been on X and public. So it has been a wonderful experience, and I can't wait to see where the team takes it next. So have a wonderful summer break. They'll be back the 3rd of September.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Thanks,
Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.